Among the many life-changing things she taught me was a concept of ser, your true essence, the whole and unbreakable you. But I wish someone would have told me how much I'd have to fall apart before I found my wholeness. And we live in a world we want it's like fast food and fast fashion, and we want fast spirituality, and we want fast healing. We think that everything is a meme, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
like, hashtag generational trauma. This is not something that I believe people inherently wanted to do to suppress their color and their identity and culture. It was taught. It was taught and internalized.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Hello, everyone. This is Pam, your host of Café con Pam, the bilingual podcast exploring stories that inspire Latine and people of the global majority who embrace their voice, challenge calladita culture, and step into their power. At Café con Pam, we celebrate those who break barriers, change lives, and make the world a better place. El día de hoy, we have a conversation with the one and only Robyn Moreno. Robyn Moreno is a storyteller, curanderismo practitioner, meditation teacher, and mama of two. Believing that young people can't be what they can't see, Robyn has worked tirelessly as a cross platform storyteller, mentor, and thought leader to create and elevate empowering stories about Latinas via her podcast, Get Rooted with Robyn Moreno. And through her roles as an Emmy nominated TV host, 4-time author, Today Show contributor, editor in chief, and co president of Latina Media Ventures, and teacher at the Omega Institute. Robyn is a popular keynote speaker and facilitator and has presented at South by Southwest Interactive, the Sundance Film Festival, the Raizado Festival, Block Pennsylvania Conference for Women, Texas Conference for Women, the Animus Summit, Hispanicize, and Yale University, among others. A native Texan and certified yoga teacher and life coach, Robyn lives with her family in the Hudson Valley of New York. Esta conversación, listeners, with Robyn was so, I'm going to give you a pun because her book is called Get Rooted, but it was very grounding. I think it was a little different than usual episodes, but we went straight into having a true, como dice Robyn, una plática. And we did very beautiful exchange of a lot of ideas and thoughts. And of course, she got to share some parts of her journey. I do definitely think you need to read Get Rooted to read more, to learn more, because in the book, she shares a ton more. And I think you'll enjoy this conversation, especially as we are existing in a world that's so chaotic, so full of devastation, so filled with grief and pain and trauma. I think this conversation is going to get you a little bit more connected and inspire you to call yourself home. Sin más, here's my conversation with Robyn Moreno. Well, Robyn, welcome to Cafe con Pam.
Welcome, Pam. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I need my cafecito.
Well, it's okay. It's later, no? Where you are? I stopped drinking coffee now at 10.
Okay.
Listeners know that I've been saying 1,
Yeah.
but now I downloaded this app that, like, tracks all my things, and they're like, "You need to cut off your caffeine by 10." And so
You know what's so funny? So yes, it's later where I am because I am on the East Coast. I'm just in the Hudson Valley of New York. But I think like you, like I wake up and drink water, and then love coffee, and I drink like more like a half calf. Like I actually
Mhm.
do half calf because I'm already naturally energetic. And I think I'll drink as much as I can until, like, 10 or even 11, but naturally my body's like, "Okay,
That's it.
slow your roll," and then from then I don't, and later I'll have a tea, and I'll have a tea in the evening, but I go sort of, like, hard and heavy in the morning, and then by, like, 10, I can't do it anymore.
Same, 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 same. So I'm like, this I have been in this journey with Mother Cacao. We'll talk about it during our coffee break. Um, and so I'm drinking cacao first thing in the morning. I do a splash of coffee because, why not?
Well, that sounds like double beauty. I will just say, and I'm who knows, like, I'm been envisioning working more with cacao and coffee because I love them both so much, and I love those lands, and I so who knows? Like, I'm in sort of inviting that in whatever way that looks like. But yeah, I love chocolate in all the forms and cacao. I also like just to eat chocolate all the time. I'm a huge fan and of coffee as well. So I'm with you, and I think that that sounds heavenly and
Yeah,
probably ancestral.
very,
Right?
very. Thinking about your book, Rooted, it when I was reading it, it connected me to how I feel when I drink cacao,
Yeah.
like how I get rooted
Yeah.
with it, and it's this very interesting, like, dichotomy because coffee lifts me up, but cacao
Yes.
grounds me.
Mm.
And so when you said, like, a double thing, when I do the splash of it, it is kind of like, well, it's almost like mother cacao pulls me down,
Yeah.
and then coffee's like, "No, but you wanna get in your head," and like, and so it's just, like, fun.
It's a fun balance, which we'll talk about because that's what we're I think what we do balance, right? We balance staying rooted. I the book that I wrote is called Get Rooted, but in many ways it could have been called like rooting because I don't think that we stay rooted, right? We live in a world that
Yes.
is in many ways not made for us to be rooted, and that's why it's so important for us to in fact root and to choose rooting again and again. But there is a flying away, and there is sometimes an action that needs to be taken, and I think the world can just unroot us, and so I love that balance of, like,
Mm,
the constantly, like, coming back and then sort of flying away, and the rooting, and then the rise, right? The rise, the move to action, the move to creation, so
yeah.
I'm feeling you. I got it.
So the first question that we always ask is, "What is your heritage?"
I am Mexican American. It's really interesting, actually. So I'm Mexican American. Both my parents are Mexican American, and we're like Texas Americans or Tejanos. So my on my mom's side, parents my mom was born in San Antonio, Texas, where I was born. So was my dad, and their parents were all born, I believe, in San Antonio, Texas. But it's interesting. And then on my mom's side, I think our matriarch, we've always been in northern Texas. So Texas used to be joined before it was Texas, which I think was like in 1846. It was held by Mexico, right? And then before it was
Mhm.
New Spain, and before it was, just indigenous. So we've always been in what was at one point called Coahuila y Tejas. And so we have always been, I guess, like norteños. We've always
Yeah.
been in that area. And so we can go back usually into
So the
Coahuila.
border crossed you.
Exactly. I'm one of those people where the border crossed me. So we've been here for many generations. What's also interesting on my dad's side is actually the matriarchs on my dad's side are actually white and black. So it was an my enslaved ancestor Sylvia, who actually married her neighbor. I don't know if it was entirely consensual, 20-year-old older white man. And then they had mixed race children. And this was like pre Civil War. And then those children, I think, ended up mostly like identifying, marrying Mexicans. So it's a strong, we grew up with an identity that was like very like Chicana, like very like
Uh-huh.
Chicana, but really, I do have a true like mixed race heritage and also indigeneity on both sides. So it's like you know, just that,
All the things.
essentially all the things.
But did you know all of this, or was it when you went on your journey that you discovered all of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, that's such a beautiful question because you're right. I wasn't just like born in the womb and being like, I know all this, so I could say it now. No, growing up, what I identified and saw was being Mexican American. So we grew up in San Antonio, Texas, which is predominantly Mexican American, and it was really cool because we had a Mexican mayor like in the '80s. Right? And so it was really, I don't know, we were just like everybody's Mexican, but then you can go 2 hours to the border going to Mexico. And it was interesting. It wasn't until I went to college. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and that's only like 90 miles north. But that's when actually Mexicans were not. We became, I guess, great more the minority. It was, I
Mm.
think, like a white majority, and you felt the difference. And this was actually, I mean, this was like 30 years ago. But I remember my friends were like, oh yeah, we're not in San Antonio anymore. Like this is, although there's a huge, obviously Mexican and Hispanic population there. But yeah, and it wasn't until, but I always knew, I have to say, I always knew that we had indigeneity. And I think that most like Chicanas understand that, right? That we are sort of always proud of that, and we understood that that because of colorism, right? That the
Mhm.
European parts of our story were very uplifted, and that was reinforced in images that we saw, like in telenovelas and stuff. But that because of like the Chicano like power movement in the '60s, and my dad was part of that. He graduated from college in 1969, so he
Wow.
was very much into like La Raza and Brown Power and Cesar Chavez, and so I always knew that we also stood strong in our indigeneity. And when I was in college, I took a lot of studies in Mexican American studies, and I began to understand that the entire Southwest, was once held by Mexico, and then lost in this war, right? This sort of manifest destiny. And so that idea, like we didn't cross the border crossed us. It was not until recently when I did a lot of dive into ancestry that the mixed race heritage came out, and that's a big. And I'm still sitting with that, to be honest with you, with that like discovery, and the fact that it was not known when we were kids. Like, why was that? Why did we not talk about this? Henry Louis Gates, who does these really beautiful Finding Your Roots series. I don't know if you know who that is. He's this like
Sounds familiar.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's I think he's on, PBS, and so he'll,
Okay.
like I don't know, he'll just get, like, a bunch of, like, every season famous people, and they go and they he does Ancestry. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and he did one within the last few years um, about, like, Black folks and in Mexico, and the fact that there at one point, there was many, many, many,
Mhm.
enslaved folks coming through, Veracruz and stuff, and then there was one titled, like, the black grandma in the closet. And so I'll be honest with you, sitting with this idea and um, this identity, and also like, why did it take us so long to really come to this? I mean, that's my big question.
Yeah. Because I think me hearing also from my family how they talk about certain people like, "Oh, he was very dark." And I'm like, "But was he black?" Like
Yeah.
and so they're like, "No, he was just very like tostado or um like the sun. He worked out in the sun." And I'm like, colorism is big."
Oh no, colorism is continues to be big, and I think we were unfortunately shaped so much by that, and so I
Mhm.
think that obviously played. And I mean, I think I'll offer grace to ancestors that aren't not here, but I think that it was dangerous. I mean, people
Mhm.
act the way they do for a reason, good or bad. And I've come as part of my, reckoning with ancestry is that people behave according to their wounds and traumas. And it was dangerous to be indigenous. It was dangerous to be black. It was dangerous to be Mexican in Texas.
Mhm.
This was dangerous, and so this is not something that I believe people inherently wanted to do to suppress their color and their identity and culture. It was taught. It was taught and internalized.
Mhm.
And so I offer a lot of grace, to be honest with you, as I still, tread these waters. And those are hard waters. We talk about ancestry, and, it's not easy. You're gonna open, like, you're gonna open the door, like, it's gonna come flying out, and I just say that. I actually went back in my book, and I added a line at the beginning because it was so, at times, treacherous. It was heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to hear these stories of colonization, um, or enslavement or, like, trauma.
Mhm.
It's not fun to go back, but I did it, and I was to me, it was a journey worth taking, but it's not to be taken lightly, and I thought, I need to tell people this, so, not like, "Woo, let's go back in Ancestry, it's gonna be great."
Yes.
And I put a line at the beginning, at the very end of the book writing process. I went back, I put a line, I guess I could read it to you, if you want me to read it to
Mhm.
you. So I say, I began to study curanderismo with a 65-year-old chingona badass reverend, and among the many life-changing things she taught me was the concept of ser, your true essence, the whole and unbreakable you. But I wish someone would have told me how much I'd have to fall apart before I found my wholeness. "What did you expect, comadre?" she replied when I complained about how painfully hard this was. "What did I expect when I started on this spiritual journey? a movie version of healing maybe where I would magically solve my midlife breakdown and never-ending family drama in a clever madcap and perfectly wrapped up 90-minute bow. Instead, it would be a 260-day journey and much longer, just so y'all know, it's ongoing, that twisted and turned and took me backward, inward, and down, down, down to the root of it all. But I wish someone had told me that once you start opening the doors and windows of memories and secrets that the windows will blow, they'll rip your house right off its foundation, and they'll rattle and roar through every part of you. And I wish someone had told me about all the revelations, abominations, and transformations to come, the blessed and wretched discoveries, the agonizing peeling off of skins, the exhausted miracle of rebirth, and the restoring joy of finally coming home. I wish someone had told me, as I said, on this journey, that I thought I had so ingeniously crafted, but that was probably ancestrally arranged, that I'd gain so much, but I'd also lose so much. I wish someone had told me, but would I have listened? In the distance, I saw a light shining like a beacon, and I ran for it. I didn't know that it was a fire.
Mm. It's so good. When I read it, I was like, "Mm, preach."
Yeah, and so I just have to be really, brutally honest, as I always wanna be with people, and as we go on these journeys, as we're all on, right? We're gonna all go on this journey
Mhm.
back up. I believe that firmly, that we will have a moment in our lives where we stop and wonder what's going on, who we are, how we got here, and turn around and look and try to understand our ancestors and their stories to know why they did what they did, and yeah, and it's revelatory, but it's also incredibly hard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I'm a coach, and so it's funny when clients are like, "How long is this gonna take?" I'm like, "Mm." It's more like you choosing to begin and then, like, just going on. This is a
Yeah.
roller coaster that's never ending.
No, exactly, 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 and we live in a world where, and someone said this to me a long time ago, like, we want, it's like fast food and fast fashion, and we want fast spirituality, and we want fast healing. We think that everything is a meme, right? And we're
Mhm.
like, hashtag generational trauma, hashtag breaking the curses. And you know what? Like, and I don't mean to be flip or mean, right? Like, people are well intentioned, but it's when you start in a path of anything, of writing a book, of starting a podcast, of having a baby, of not having a baby, of healing, it's cycles and years and essentially for the rest of your life. And so you just have to stay, which is I think about rooting again, you stay on the path. And it's worth it because you're, for me, more is revealed, and it feels, I don't know, closer to spirit, to connection, and to my sad and others. Yeah.
I love that you talk about ser because I recently did an interview en español totalmente with
Mm,
Bea, and we touched on ser o estar,
mhm.
but in inglés doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so it, like, put me into this, like, I reflected on it after, and I'm like, and I think why maybe, and I would love to hear your take on this. The concept of ser is so foreign to the North, like the United States,
Yeah.
English speakers, because it doesn't exist in, like, there's no vocabulary for it,
Yeah.
like, to be no es ser, to be is estar, like, it's
Yeah.
there's no space for it. And so I love that you talk about ser, but how was it for you as you learned about ser to
Yeah.
kinda, like, remove, because you had been for a long time, you had an identity for a long time. So was it for you to, like, remove yourself, shed it, and then ser?
I learned it through I have, as I mentioned in that reading that I did, that I have a spiritual teacher, and she's really wonderful. She's I mean, there's a lot of familiarity with her. Like, she's also from Texas. Um, like, and so she taught me this concept of ser, right? And I have to say, my Spanish was not my first language growing up. And that's a whole part of like a reckoning that I was always mad at my mom because I was like, my grandma used to call me a pocha.
Mm.
And, I don't always, I mean, I think nicely, but like, it's not really that nice of a word. Like, I looked
Right.
up the word pocha, and it means that it's a fruit that's become like, basically that's lost its flavor. That's what it means, as far as I understood. That was a definition. It was like, this
Wow.
is a fruit.
Bland.
Yeah, that it's lost its flavor. And I was like, "Wow, thanks, grandma." And so it was like, "Well, why did I lose my flavor?" Well, why that's my question. Well, why? Like, I mean, it was like, I don't it was done to me. Like, why did I? And so I would ask my mom, like, "Why didn't you teach me Spanish? Spanish was your first language, and Spanish was my dad's first language." And she said, and she always said this actually, and she was like, "We weren't allowed. You were not allowed to speak Spanish." So in the state of Texas, and I went back and I understood that, like, and I think this is not, it's part of assimilation, like, when I think all kinds of cultures come and there's a level of wanting to fit in, and so people Americanize their names, and they generations lose their culture. I think that's part of assimilation, but also what I read and found out, that in Texas, where I'm from, and I believe this, maybe there's other states in the Southwest as well, but I can only speak to Texas, actually had a law. So there was a law in Texas that you could not speak Spanish at school, and I think it was from, and I'm not entirely sure, so you should have to fact check this one, but I want to say it was from like 1929 to 1969. Kids were not allowed to speak Spanish in school. Now, my parents grew up like in the 50s and 60s, which meant that they went to school. And so she would tell me, it affirmed this, but this was systemic. This is
Mhm.
systemic racism. This is systemic. This is not just someone wanting to fit in or even something internalized. This is actually a law. This is right. So I was just like, okay, so this is why.
You actually couldn't.
Yeah, they couldn't. They would go, and they would say this, that they would go to school and they would get in trouble. And my aunt would say, like, yeah, they would put the little boy with his nose in the corner, or they would like hit him on the hands.
Mhm. With a ruler?
Yeah, and they were like, you, and this wasn't even like in a private school. This was in a public school in Texas. And so anyway, I only say that because I'm learning Spanish. I'm 51 years old and I'm still learning, and I've had to really make a lot of peace with that. And as I understand, and I make a lot of peace with that. And so, in terms of the concept of ser, and to be, right? My teacher, I was having a lot of self doubt, just period. Like, just as I was walking the spiritual path, as I was just sort of looking at the world in a really awakened way, I was like, what in the world? It was so much easier when I was a little bit kind of just flying through my life, like some sort of
Uh-huh.
susto trauma, or society gave me a map.
Yes.
I was like, check, 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 check. But when I woke up in this sort of midlife crisis, I was like, began to question everything, and I was having a lot of self doubt. And she said, you really, and she said it just really casually, like this wasn't like a giant lecture. She was like, comadre, you need to stay in your ser. You need to stay in your ser. And she was talking about ser in that way, like it was a
Uh-huh.
thing. And I was like, "What are you saying?" And I was like, "I think said means to be." And it was like it was a be, but it was a being.
Yes.
It was like it's a way of being,
Yes.
like does it make sense? And
Yes.
so like, how are you being? Like, what is your, and so to me, ser, it's very hard. And I think the listeners can define for themselves, and people have different words. But as she taught me, and as I understand it, as I feel it in the body, sad is me. Sad is me. Me before people told me who to be, before the world told me good or bad who to be, before my own family told me good or bad, shaped by their own, centuries of conditioning and trauma. And like, who am me, right? Even below the Robinness, probably, right?
Yes.
Like the like just me. And I feel it now. It's funny. It's like I'm talking to you and I feel it. So it's more, to me, it's more felt than maybe sort of articulated or defined, but the way that I felt it is really, there's a sense of peace and there's a sense of knowing.
Mm.
And I think, to me, maybe that's why I call it, one of the reasons I call the book Get Rooted, because it's like, I know, I mean, maybe this doesn't make sense. This probably makes no sense to anybody. This, or I'm going to do this thing and it makes sense to nobody. And I don't know, maybe I'll fall on my face, but I have to trust this thing because it's speaking to me really loudly. And when I don't trust it, right? When I don't
Mm.
listen to it, and I don't, I just think that oftentimes we've been conditioned, or trauma can teach us not to listen. There can be a lot of voices in there, and so much of my continued, I don't know if I should call it work, but like Being is to be, in fact, is to be,
Mhm.
and try at this age, be, man, be exactly who I am.
Totally. And it makes me wonder because when I met you, when I heard about Robyn Moreno,
Yeah.
you were an executive at
Yes.
a big company,
Mhm.
and you were one of the few.
Yes.
That's when you were like, you were one, so you had to be known because you were one of the few. And to bring it back to said, how much were you being then?
Mm.
And, how did you well, let's stop there because I can keep asking questions.
That's a beautiful question, and what I can say, my best answer is that that version of me was being who she was and who she had to be in those
Mm,
situations. Do you know what I'm saying?
yes.
The reality is that to be, like, in corporate and executives in rooms that are not really made for you, right? As women of color, it would be dishonest to say, like, "Ooh, I was just myself. I was just myself." Um, do I wish that I could have done maybe things a little bit different? I can, but it's hard to go back in time because you only know what you know then. You did the best you could at that given time. And so that version of Robin, I think was being. I think she really was. I think that she was being as much as she could. Um, in in hindsight, or how about now? Now, this version of Robin, I would like to think that I could bring the totality of myself to
Mm,
that position. I left, I think, a lot of I mean, I don't think I don't know. My compassion was always there. My story always shaped me. It shapes you despite yourself. You just are who you are, but maybe owning a little bit more of that, the good and the bad. I think, yeah, that would have maybe been a different type of sacred leadership. But I definitely feel like I said, I think that version of Robin was a really beautiful version. I look back with great, even the ones I don't like, I'll be honest with you, right? There's this idea that you wanna push pieces of yourself away, and I don't because they again, it's part of that grace, like, we all survived. We all have survival mechanisms, right?
mhm.
And we did what we had to do to survive those situations. So yeah, I look back at those times and it was like, wow, that girl is kind of badass, actually.
Yeah.
That was a badass girl, woman, chingona, to really to step up into leadership when times were not perfect, when the conditions were not perfect, with the exact tools that I had, and activated every tool. Like no tool was left undone, and like networks and collaborations. And so I have great fondness, and probably admiration for that version of myself. And I think she was being who she could be at that time.
I love it. And it wasn't a traditional path. You share all in the book, which I don't wanna, like, spoil it. That's
Yeah,
why I don't want like, it's a beautiful book, and we'll touch more on it.
yeah.
But I don't wanna spoil it because I think people need to read it from front to back. There's a lot. Um, and you talked about, like, I don't know if you said imposter, but that's maybe the way that I kinda, like, received it. Was the imposter bigger as you were in your spiritual journey or in your career?
I mean, I think that the imposter or whatever that is was there equally.
Mm,
Always there. I really do think that. I think that it came on, like, in a way, it may have been easier in that corporate setting because I had so much to do that I had to kind of ignore it. Like I was too busy. Like I was just like,
mm,
you're just too busy. You have too much responsibility. You have too much bottom line. You have too much care for people that work for you. You have too much responsibility to the people that you're working for, right? Who are your like constituents, your readers, your followers or whatever. But so I think that in weird way, I think that, and I guess I'll speak for me, like that imposter, this idea of like, who do you think you are? Or whatever, like you should know way more than you do was probably always there. But I think in an executive, high pressured role, I didn't have time to listen as much.
oh,
I was like, you know what? I hear you, but get to work or get lost. Like we got things to do. Okay. I think that weirdly enough, when I have taken a pause and slowed my roll and started walking a completely unconventional path that I've never done, no one in my family has ever done. I take it back. My great grandmother was a curandera, but just at this point in my life, like walking something that looks so different was like, whoa, that was hard. And I don't think that that's uncommon. I think when you're trying to forge a path that has not been forged before, at least for you, you're like,
You just go.
what am I doing? Like, does this make sense to me? And you're walking, and then you're like, I've got my sad. Look at me, I'm good. Or I'm just like, okay, I'm guided by pushed by the ancestors. And then you freak out, and you're like,
Yeah.
hold on, because you just can't see enough. There's not enough tangible proof yet. And so you're
Mm.
just like, it's still murky. You're still in the woods. And I think that I imagine, I can't speak for everybody, but I just think that, and like when you started your podcast, like you must have been like, "What in the" I mean, it feels
I still don't know what I'm doing.
yeah. Like, what do I do? Like, it feels really rooting when, like, I talk to you, or right? I'm sure when you have these conversations, you probably, sign off and you're like, "That's exactly right." That you have this feeling of, like, rightness that's like, "Okay, I am going in this right path." And then in between, who knows, like something comes in, the winds, and you're like, oh. And so I don't know if it's a complete banishment. But I guess maybe an evolution, and maybe it gets it easier as you walk the path and try to find others that are walking the path with you. I never like to do this alone.
I agreed. Okay, let's take a quick coffee break, and then we'll come back to hear the rest of your story. We talk about the book, and then
Sabrosura pa' tu que qué.
okay. So, Robin, tell me about your coffee um, ritual, if you have one.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I do have a coffee ritual. So I love coffee. I love coffee. And
Same.
so, yeah, same, same. I will say that my husband does make amazing coffee. So oftentimes if he wakes up before me, he will make the coffee, which is really nice. Like I'm
That
like,
is
that's a
nice.
real act of love. Like it's those little things. Um, but regardless who makes it, it's usually half calf because I'm very energetic. And so I think full caffeine for me would be a bit too much.
Yeah,
And so I actually mix two types of coffee. So like I mix the ratio
the
of
grain.
yeah, and that way it's
Nice.
a little bit, like, lower, and then I add cinnamon to it because it
Mm.
smells so amazing, and I'm sure it does a lot of really amazing things for your brain, um, but I'm very sensory, smell is one of my I don't know how to describe it. Like I constantly have like an essential oil around me because I'm very like scent
Uh-huh.
calms me. It inspires me. There's something about scent for me especially that's very like calming and soothing. And then I just really enjoy it. It's funny because there's so much sun coming in now. And I try if I have time in the mornings to sit in the sun. We have a lot of beautiful big windows. And like the sun like in my coffee room is like east facing, and so there's a lot of sun in the morning. And
Yes.
sun is, it can bring there's this idea that it can bring your tonali or soul energy. And so like sitting in the sun in an appropriate way, like not burning yourself because the sun's quite strong, but like actually basking in the sun can be a way to infuse your soul, right? To bring your soul back because the sun has a lot of energy.
Cats do it all the time.
Yeah, right? And it's just like sort of it's just and then I look out and as I'm turning into like my definite like I don't know what you would call it, like doña like phase, I'm into birding.
What? That's a very señora thing.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing. So where I it's just because I get to pay attention and where I live, there's so many birds
Mhm.
naturally. There's naturally birds. So like blue jays, cardinals at different times, right? Like chickadees, woodpeckers, like a hawk. Like,
Wow.
yeah, and so I'm just I mean, this is a I can in 10 minutes, like I could see a heron. And so I'm just in awe. And so that is a beautiful, and I don't always get to do it, but if I allow that for myself, even just looking outside and seeing like a little like chickadee or cardinal, it just is it's very rooting and it's very nourishing and it's very connecting for me.
Yeah. And I think the ritual of coffee or a drink in the morning
Yeah.
in it's so powerful, and I I don't know if you do this, but I set an intention with my cup every
Mm.
morning, and I literally, like, tell it because I don't know if you have you seen the study of water? It's a Japanese scientist.
Yes, and is it that you talk to the water and it does things, right?
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you talk mean to the water, the molecule of water breaks apart. If you talk good things to the water, the molecule of water gets beautiful. And so I saw that study years ago, and ever since I talk to my water because I'm like and it also to think that we're like a big percentage water, I don't know, what, 70% water or whatever.
Oh,
It's also how we talk to ourselves. Like, it's a reminder to talk good things to myself because otherwise my own molecules might just fall apart. And so I set an intention, and I think even I imagine it like when you were in New York City, like walking. I think of all the people that grab their morning coffee and they just like go with it, and
yeah.
that's also a ritual, even though it's very fast paced, but
Yeah.
it's a way of said in a way.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit unrooted, I would say. What do you think?
I mean, it's just different, right? It's, like, different. It's like they're more like I mean, that me at that time was more, I don't know, like, a different kind of warrior energy.
Yes,
Like, okay.
yes. Let's go.
Yeah, and New York City is it's a gorgeous, gorgeous city, but it's a city of movement. It's a lot of movement.
Yes.
It's a lot of I mean, as soon as I because I would take the train from where I live in the Hudson Valley, which is very idyllic, and take it on the water and feel really good, and as soon as I hit Grand Central, it was like vamonos. Like, it is just like a different energy, and so, yeah, that's a different energy. I love that idea of water. I've been really feeling into water. I was just talking to someone. I was lucky enough to, and I wish I knew the name of this person because I would love to give her credit. But I was at this indigenous gathering, a gathering of indigenous leaders, and this Cherokee seed keeper spoke, and she is from the Cherokee Nation. I think it has a story where she knew of her heritage. I think she grew up on a reservation or not. Definitely her ancestors did, but was sort of, I don't know, came really began to really embrace this indigeneity more in adulthood. And now her job is to reseed, like to find seeds and reseed them, seeds that never met.
Mm.
It's really beautiful. Like and so she talks about also this idea of rewatering. And I loved the way that she explained it. And as I understand it, hopefully I'm understanding it, I'm interpreting it right. But when she spoke, she talked about this idea like, you know, she was reseeding. She's trying, her and other people are working in like, I don't know, food justice, and they're trying to create new seeds that maybe have died out, right? So
Mm.
seeds, can they grow again of like corn and other crops, right? And how these seeds are the seeds of the ancestors. And she's like, I'm rewatering. Like when I'm watering, she goes, I'm also rewatering me, like what's
Yes.
in me, the seeds in me. And so when I heard that, I was like, you know, the subtitle of my book is Reclaim. Like reclaim your soul, your serenity, and your sisterhood through the healing medicine of the grandmothers, right? And I love the idea of reclaim, like reclama,
Mm,
like
mm.
someone took this, which is true, right? Like culture and books and ways of being, right? And so we're going to take this back. And I love the
Yes.
agency and action of that, the reclaiming. I'm going to reclaim that for myself. But what I really love and am feeling now is rewatering. And this
Mm.
idea that, you know what, there is things inside of us that never die, that maybe they lie dormant in us
Yes.
through generations or seasons in our own lives. I'm getting emotional for some reason, but like it's untakeawayable. Like that is you no one can take that from you.
Yes.
No, it's untakeawayable. And so all we really have to do with like you're reminding me with your intentionality is rewater,
Mm.
is tend to the self, is to tend to the ser, to tend to, and it could be as simple as that beautiful, like, right, that like the beverage, the drinking, the ritual, the idea of slowing down. My grandmother reminds me so much of coffee. She would drink coffee like day and night with the dulce, like and so anyway, that's really beautiful. I'm gonna set an intention with my coffee in the morning. Thank you.
Yeah, with your pajaritos
Yeah.
flying through.
I'm I'm like full on senora. I don't care. My hair is wild. There's birds around me. I'm like, my neighbors probably think I'm nuts. I do not care.
I
Whatever.
mean, and that's sad, no?
That's it. That's it.
For sure. I love it. Well, on my have you had your morning coffee?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because it's later in the day for you. For me, I'm drinking cacao.
Okay.
We're still in the coffee break. This is a very long coffee break, listeners. I'm drinking cacao. I'm drinking ceremonial cacao. I drink a cacao cup every morning,
Mm.
and it's so mother cacao. It's very heart centered, and it has theobromine, which is the compound that helps basically open up your heart.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've ever done a cacao circle, but like you feel your heart like bum 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 bum, like it's just, and it's. Have you read the book When Women Were Drummers?
No.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. I'll send
Okay.
you the picture.
Okay.
Um, so basically, it talks about how women's were drummers and like the shamans use the drum because that's the heartbeat of the earth.
Yeah.
And so when I drink cacao, I think of that.
Mm.
And I had an incident almost 3 years ago where I landed in the hospital because I was triaged for heart attack or stroke in my
Oh my
30s.
goodness.
Yeah. And after like a lot of inwardness and ser, I realized that that was my heart calling me back to be, to not like to stay away, like because I was in my head so much, and so like
Yes.
it was this like
Mm.
I don't know, fifth awakening, I guess, and this connection with like that's where Mother Cacao started calling me, and so that's why I've been like super into cacao because I feel this like super strong connection with my heart and being.
That is so beautiful. I thank you, and I feel that. And it's funny, I was saying before that I love chocolate, like, period, and cacao too. And it's funny, I've been dancing with Mother
Mm,
Cacao. I have a really good friend that does cacao, and we'll work together. And I'll do the like a journey or a deep meditation. And she does the cacao, and I've just been circling it. It's almost I don't know how to describe. I've been kind of like,
yeah. She
mm,
calls you, she whispers.
she's whispering. She's been whispering, and then I did a really beautiful ceremony last summer, and I was like almost not gonna go, and I went, and it was heart opening. I within like I mean I don't know. I don't even think it was very long. I I really felt my ancestors really deeply and very clearly. And I was like, and I told my friend, and she's like, I think like, like Mother Cacao is calling you. And so I haven't known, right, answering the call. What does that mean?
Yes.
Answer the call, right? And so I don't know. I don't know, but I love this ritual. So I'm so inspired by you. So maybe, and you drink it for breakfast.
Yeah, because it's but the first thing I drink.
Okay.
I tried to drink water first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
but I'm not the best at that. So my first thing is cacao, and it has fat. So ceremonial cacao has a lot of fat and magnesium and the theobromine and a lot of antioxidants. So
Yeah.
it's really actually nurturing.
Yeah.
So it's my first drink.
No, I love that, and I just love what we're talking about with heart medicine, right?
Mhm.
I'm a heart medicine person. I mean, I think there's a lot of different medicines, but I'm a I'm a I'm a heart medicine person. Maybe we all are, right? I think we're all it's medicine of the heart. That's the one that speaks to me, because I'm so drawn to my heart. I follow my heart. And it's like, in the like the Mexican Aztec Mexica creation story, which I don't know, I put it in my book. I think it's I don't know. I think people know it, but maybe they don't know. So the Mexica were a wandering tribe, as I understand. I don't think people knew where they were, right?
Yes.
I don't think they found Aslan. It could be like in Utah, it could be northern Mexico. I don't think, but I think the story is that they were a wandering tribe that had this idea that they got this vision from Huitzilopochtli, who is called the hummingbird to the left, that said, when you'll find your land, you'll find your home, right? A place to build your home. When you see uh, a an eagle eating a snake perched on a cactus. That's how you'll know. And so as I understand it, and this is, I think, like in the creation story, they wandered, they followed the Huitzilopochtli. I think people held like, his entities, and they were the shamans were communing with this energy of Huitzilopochtli, and they found their way to Tenochtitlan, which is
Mm,
Mexico City, which is why the Mexican flag has
that's the eagle.
this kind of iconography of the eagle eating the snake on the cactus. But the idea is following your heart because,
Mhm.
and I believe it is, I always try to just credit people for their words, and I read it from, I can't, she's a curandera that goes by, like, Curanderismo of Mexico. I think her name is
Mm,
Graciela, maybe. She wrote this beautiful post and said, Huitzilopochtli is called the hummingbird to the left, and she said the hummingbird, and also it's the direction, they symbolize the direction of the south. So the hummingbird to the left and the south is your heart,
yes.
right? And so if you, like the way that our ancient ancestors followed their hummingbird heart to find their way home, if you follow your heart, you'll get home. You'll
Yes.
go, you'll get where you need to go, which is home, right? And my Esthera says, when you don't listen to your heart, you're not listening to the ancestors,
100%.
right?
They sent me to the hospital so I could listen.
I know, I know, I know. And you're okay, I hear you. I hear you. Thank you. Thank you. I know. Always
Oh,
talking, those ancestors.
I know. Okay, let's get back to the show because this is a super long coffee break. Let's talk about something we all deserve: financial empowerment. Whether you're tackling debt, planning for retirement, or starting that dream business, navigating your finances can feel overwhelming. But it doesn't have to be, thanks to Savvy Ladies. Savvy Ladies is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women like you take control of your financial future. They offer free resources, webinars, and my favorite, a free financial helpline where you can connect one on one with trusted financial experts. And yes, it's completely free. Whether you're just starting your financial journey or need guidance on a specific challenge, Savvy Ladies is here to provide quality and trusted advice you can count on. So why wait? Visit savvyladies.org today and connect with the financial helpline to get the personalized support you deserve. Your journey to financial independence starts here. That is savvyladies.org. Your path to financial freedom can start today. So, Robyn, you wrote this beautiful book, Get Rooted, and there's a lot. It's definitely one I think that people need to sit with. And you have practices and you have storytelling, and you walk us through your journey of 200. How many days were it? 206.
260 days.
Yeah. How was it for you to dismantle that identity of being the, like, you talk about being the boss mom, like, like you had this like persona, and then all of a sudden all of that's gone. And it, for me, from I guess an audience standpoint, I saw you as this like super boss executive, and then all of a sudden gone, and then you came back and was like totally different person. How was it for you? Like, as you were going through a journey, of course, and how was it for you to come back into the world?
Such good questions. Such good questions. So the question is how was it to come back from
Yeah.
having sort of stepped off like the merry-go-round? Um, I don't know if I've come back. You know what I mean? Like, what is coming back, right? To be
Mm.
honest with you, I'm gonna just be honest. Like, what does that mean to come back? Like, I was living, I will say this also, like, I've always been a spiritual person. I just didn't always listen.
Yes.
I just didn't always listen to myself. I didn't listen to my ser. I didn't listen to my ser. But I really believe me, that my ancestors have always been speaking to me. right? That spirit, that my ser, have always been guiding me and probably protecting me in ways that I don't even know.
Mhm.
And I just think that a lot of susto, trauma, ego, I don't know, it was my evolution. I just didn't always hear them, right? And so even though it might seem like, from appearances or like a social media perspective or like someone who's in the mix of things, that at some point I was in then and then I wasn't,
Yes.
it can look like that, right? But I think that my ser was really always a poet. I mean, like, honest I just never really dared to claim that because who claims such a things? Like, who's gonna honor the poet and the storyteller and the cantadora, right?
Mhm.
I didn't see that upheld anywhere. That was not like I couldn't take that in college.
Right.
So, I don't think I thought I could do those things, and I wasn't always honored maybe honestly within my own home, I think I was always a sensitive kid, and I think that my parents and I love my parents, I give them a lot of grace. I don't think they had time, and I
Mhm.
think they had so much wounding, they weren't always they couldn't they couldn't meet me where I was. They just couldn't, and I'm not again, I say I have a lot of forgiveness, but so I didn't know that I could. And so then it was like that shapeshifter was like, "Well, then you can do this, this, and this." And so I'm like, "Well, that's what it'll look like." And it was great for a long time. Like it was like I really loved telling stories. But I think what I'm trying to say is the shift was probably is not as big as it probably seems because at heart I've always been a storyteller.
Yes.
And so what happened is that I just stepped away from like a sort of forward facing public kind of like role maybe, and then was like, I need to like really tend to myself in a way that's very inward. And I was also like not in good shape. I guess I have to be honest about that. Like I also was really my mental health was not good. Like my physical health was not good. Like I was drinking a lot. Like I just was I wasn't 100 and I knew like it wasn't like you like when they send you to the hospital
Yeah.
like, I was getting the memos, like, "You're not doing well, like, you need to slow down and tend to yourself, or we're gonna kinda make you have to do that." And so, I really have been spending these last few years have been so hard for so many, like the pandemic and our
Yeah.
political climate, like, it's just been so hard for so many. And so I've been having to tend to that, and so I don't know, it's funny, like, it's a really weird spot to be in, and I think other people I don't think I'm alone in that, where you're just
Mhm.
like, "Where am I going back to?
Right.
Where are we going? Like, where do I wanna go?" And so I think that, you know, I'm getting to decide, like, where do I wanna put my energy? And, like, where do I wanna put my artistry? And where do I wanna, like, co-labor with other people? And it's been a little quieter. I will say that there is an honesty and someone said this to me, it was Nelly Galan.
Mm. Neligalan changed my life when I was, like, 18 years old.
Yeah, Nelly Galan I'm a big fan, and especially because we talked about this specific kind of thing, and at some point in her life, she was like a media mogul. I don't know what her
Mhm.
exact title was, but she was like, I wanna say like EVP at Telemundo or something,
Mhm.
and she was like
Just
getting
behind the scenes, no?
she was in magazines and getting invited everywhere, and she was like La Chingona, and then she left, and she was like because she had her own thing, her own midlife trajectory.
Yeah.
And she actually went back to school. I'm pretty sure she got a doctorate, like, and think in psychology, like she did some, and then she came back and she did self-made. But like that journey to me was so interesting because no one talks about that when you need to like heal and find yourself. And she talked about that transition, and she's like, nobody called me anymore. Like, just you would just see people do things, and then no one just, and it's like you can't lie, like it's an ego thing. But if you say, and so we're talking about walking the path, right? You're a coach.
Yes.
If you want, you're gonna have to do, you're gonna have to live what you say.
Mm.
And if I'm saying that I want to find my ser, I want to find value outside of the world. I want to know who I am outside of this world, then I need to do it. I need to do it, and I had to do it, and I had to kind of fall apart, and it was, like, not painful because I was like, "Oh, this is weird. What am I doing? Like, I'm crazy. What did you do?" You know? And it was like I had to, like I resisted, and I had to let myself really and so I think living in yeah, like a little with, like, less ego.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm constantly having to, like, "This is what you want. This is your path. Let others do things. Let others" like, you can't compare and despair.
Yes.
And it's been so you when you choose a path, you're also choosing no to something else.
Yes.
It's like really living with that and the consequences of that, and so I feel like now again, I think the question was like, "How did you come back?" Like, and I that was probably 5 minutes ago, so I went off on a tangent, forgive me, but I I think that again, I think the real answer is I don't know if I've come back to myself,
Yes.
and that's what matters. I've come back home to me, and where that shows up, maybe that's up to spirit or, like, something else, like, more will be revealed, but I came back to me, and that's what needed to happen, or I would have nothing.
It's so beautiful because that's what continues to get you rooted,
Yeah,
regardless of what happens outside externally.
yeah,
And I think it's a great lesson for all of us listening to you because then it's this like the discernment is more about how do you come back to you rather than make the best choice for what the world expects of you.
exactly.
And so thank you for a beautiful answer.
Yeah, thank you for, like, clarifying that because that's really beautiful.
Yeah, no, of course. We're running out of time. We could just like
Oh my
sit
goodness!
here and stay talking.
Ooh, oh my god, I was just about to grab a cup.
I know. So tell us about Get Rooted. Where can people find it? Where can people find you? All the things.
Get Rooted, what's wonderful about Get Rooted is that it is a beautiful book that if you're into hard copy books, that you can pick it up everywhere that books are sold. So you can also go to your library. Like
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of going to libraries and getting it. I also did the audiobook, and the audiobook has been really well received. And so if you're an audiobook kind of person, if it's something that you want to listen while you're driving, it's me. And that's really exciting, I think. So I'll be narrating and tell you the stories. Um, and that's anywhere. You can get that anywhere books are sold. And I would say that I'm really not on social media that much anymore. Part of the like withdrawing has been from that. I haven't found it to be a place that's very generative and like peaceful. I loved making some connections that I wouldn't have, but otherwise I keep like questioning my relationship with it. And so I have a newsletter that I'm going to really try to tend and water so I can build community and connections with other people because I also want to hear other people's stories, not just me talking all the time. And so I would recommend going to robynmoreno.com and sign up for my newsletter. And I have like a lot of information of like workshops that I'm holding because I do teach like workshops and retreats. And I am in circle. And if you would like me to come talk to you at a book club or like, in any capacity, I love being in Platica. Like I really
Mm.
like, this is I love this. Like, this is very plática is what they call a heart-to-heart talk, and,
Mhm.
I mean, there's all so many metaphors we could say for the heart, but this is very heartening for me, Pam, so thank you. So I love talking, as y'all can probably understand. I haven't stopped, so I would if you wanna be in conversation, like, online, like, around, like, let's just talk.
Yes, for sure. So, Robin, what's next for you?
I think that I'm doing it to be and I think it goes back to the being part. I think that, an old version of me and again, love all the versions of me, but when I left an old job, an old big job, I started writing the book, like, nearly right away. Like, I was just like I couldn't stand the idea of having nothing to do, it just was, like, too dis combobulating for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's what that Robin needed. That version of Robin needed, like, something. And right now, honestly, it's an interesting space because I have things that are, like, wide open. And so when you talked about we've talked about the rewatering and the intentionality, and I feel right now I'm swimming in the waters of creativity, and I'm asking spirit and ideas and creating space to see what will come forth next. And so I probably have some ideas for books and or other things, but nothing, I'll be honest with you, like nothing is really solid. And I'm honoring that. Like I'm honoring this sort of like
In between.
in the napanla of it, the in between and just having like some ease. Like I because I've responded to trauma so much part of my life.
Yes.
Like trauma, fix it, mess, fix it, and that's a pattern, but as we break patterns and have some ease, I'm trying to find some ease. So I'm trying to enjoy, this season of my life. I'll be 52, which is a big number in June, and I'm trusting more will be revealed. But, I'm doing a lot of retreats and workshops, and so that's the work I'm doing presently.
How fun. Such a like connected answer because I think we live in a world that is just expecting the next success, the
Yeah.
next thing, and so you bringing us back to, like, nothing, and that's okay, and everything at the same time.
I think it's normalizing what we're trying to talk about. Like, we have to live into these things we're talking about, right? So if I'm gonna live into this kind of being, intentionality, reality, I have to honor the space that I'm in instead of just, like, run right through it. So, yeah, thank you. So, yes, and I get to talk to wonderful people like you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, last few questions. Do you have a remedy you wanna share with us?
It's funny because before we talked, I took a bath. Um
Mm,
And I'm just again, I've been talking about water a lot. So I have in my book, Remedios for baños because I'm just a big, big bath person. And if people don't like baths and they're more shower people, there's remedios in as well in there for that as well. So essentially it's just boiling. Rosemary is very strengthening. Sage is very cleansing, right? Like rue can be, bringing yourself back. A lot of marigold energy can have grandmother energy. So
mhm.
if any of these like herbs, and then you can add to that like some essential oils. 'Cause I'm a big essential oil person, but I'm a huge believer in that you are your own curandera.
Yeah.
You know what you need. And so just this idea that we've been talking about intentionality, of rewatering, of nourishing, even in a small way. It's not expensive. You don't have to go outside yourself to really do it. It's very accessible to you, you know. And so I just invite people. I'm a big soaker. And so I like that. But if you want to actually, you can use that tea to kind of pour over yourself. Just for and that intentionality, right? Like
Yeah.
invite the cleansing in, right? Like wash away whatever needs to be released in that day, right? There's so many
Yeah.
conversations, ruminations, situations, things that we read on the news that we have control and that we don't have control over. And it's like, not that we're looking away, but like what's not going to serve me. And so like the cleansing, the intentionality, and what can I bring? What can I bring? Or can I just sit in here and nourish myself? Can I just like, I love that word, apapachar.
Oh, yeah, papacha is one of my favorites.
Right? And it's sort of like it means like what? Like to like cuddle, to like tend to self, and so it's like I love that, and so like I feel like let yourself being held by the water, right? Like
Mhm.
really like let yourself go, you know? Let yourself go for just a second. Like let go of the burdens and the ease and the fix it for 10 minutes. 10
Mhm.
minutes. And what can you and let yourself be held. Can you be held? Can you tend? And then like as you get out, it's also part of the cleansing is if you put on a robe and then drink like a manzanilla or chamomile tea, you're still part of that like releasing is continuing. It's also very nurturing. So I literally just did it before you and I actually spoke. I took an early baño. I just was inspired because I'm finding a lot of comfort in there. So that's one that
Mm,
today I can offer with a whole heart.
I love that. I get my best ideas in the shower.
Yes, right?
Mhm.
There's just something about it, right? It's like watering and I don't know, like, it's just and there must be a reason, like, physically, like, it's hitting on the senses.
Mhm. It's very somatic.
It's something somatic, it's probably stimulating something, yeah, I feel
For
you.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Well, Robin, thank you so much for coming to Cafe Con Pam. This was so fun.
This was so fun.
We could stay talking.
We have to go now.
I know.
I just wanna say, like, Pam, thank you. Honestly, like, thank you so much for doing this, for, like, consistently doing this for, like, I mean, is it almost coming up on 10 years now?
Yeah. We turned 9.
Thank you for because this is hard work. It's
Yes.
I don't know if people know how hard that you must work to
Yes.
find guests, to ask the questions, to research their books. You read my book. That takes time to show up, to put on makeup, to like invest in your equipment, right? To have be prepared for this conversation, to hold space for this conversation, to like unwind from this conversation, to integrate this conversation, make your show notes, put it up, promote it. Like it is no small feat. It isn't.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I don't know, I just wanna commend you. I don't know that you need to, I don't wanna sound like matriarchal, but I just wanna say that I recognize you and I see you, and so thank you because what you're doing is also uplifting, like, you invited me to share something that's really like my work, like my heart. Like you really accepted. When I wrote the book, I call it an ofrenda, and you
Mm,
accepted it. And now we're like together offering this ofrenda to people. And so I genuinely really feel and so grateful. And so thank you. And and whatever I can do to support you, please let me know.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's super fun. Like, I shared this before with you before we started recording. I started this as a very selfish project because I just wanted to see people like me, and then eventually listeners were like, "No, we're connecting as well." And so now this project is a project for all of us, and it's
Yeah.
an honor to get to be able to ask questions. I'm a very curious person, so I can never run out of questions.
You are you're a natural. You're a natural, and yeah, I'll just say that last thing, like, the idea of the us, it really makes everything possible. Like, when I was
Mhm.
writing my book and it was hard even on the path I'm on, I don't ever think that I'm alone because I know I'm not, and the us of it is really is everything,
Yeah.
the us of it. So thank you, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, listeners, that was my conversation with Robin. I would love to hear what you think. Tell me about this style of interview. We went a little bit different. Typically, a Gafa con Pam episode, we explore the guest story from the beginning of their story and their upbringing all the way to what they do now. I think this conversation with Robin was different, but it was very heart centered and very connected. And I hope you like it. I would love to hear your thoughts. Screenshot and tag us on socials. I know Robin said that she's not on social media that much, but I'm still there for now, as of today. Don't know in the future, but as of today, I'm still there. And yeah, tag us and let me know what you think. Would love to hear what came up for you. How are you choosing to get rooted? What practices are you embracing? How are you giving yourself tiny glimmers of spaciousness and peace and ease? Because you deserve it, because we all deserve it. So, at Cafe Con Pam Podcast on all the socials, cafeconpam.com to check out all of the other things that we do, episode notes, additional stories. We have almost 400 episodes, so you have plenty of stories to go through. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I will see you en nuestro próximo cafecito. Y como siempre, sigue brillando.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.